know just how you're feeling in your mind and your heart, and you can be authentically healing.
I be straight up and down because I got abandonment issues.
Right.
So the way I disconnect from that is I just disconnect from you totally. I see you in the street, I wave, keep it moving. You know what I mean? If I feel like you acting funny, then you gonna act funny on your own. And the problem is I don't always know how to differentiate that from people who are outside my family from people who are inside my family.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I can get that way with her.
Mm-hmm.
And I can get that way with my kids.
Right.
And I can get that way with my mom. And I can get that way. You understand what I'm saying? So it's really just getting to that place of where I'm learning how to become more intimately connected with people, emote with my emotions. You know what I mean? And be vulnerable in those things because I'm not him. You know what I mean? I wasn't raised that way. You know what I mean? And then on top of it being a foster child, it's like, all right, yeah, let's quickly disconnect. You know what I mean? Because I can't give nobody that kind of power over me. I don't care who you are. So that means that ultimately, I'm not even letting you in spaces. You know what I mean? That's really challenging for me. You know what I mean? So in my marriage, you know, that's kind of crazy too because there's probably places in my life she still hasn't even entered into because of those walls. You know what I mean? And we talking 24 years in. So when it comes to my personal challenges and traumas and so forth and so on, part of that is, okay, all right, Rha-Sheen, you got to find you. So it's hard for me to give someone all of this love that they desire to fill their tank
Right.
when I don't even know how much is in my tank.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I don't even allow my tank to get to that level
Right,
to
right.
pour out.
And
how has that impacted the relationship? Everything that you said, all of those kind of things that you try to navigate through, how does that negatively impacted your relationship? But on the flip side of that, how have you guys started to potentially heal in those places and spaces?
I think for my wife is what she was saying, like that emotional tank doesn't always get filled with her. You know what I'm saying? And you know the worst thing you can do for a man who is like that is that when he tries to give you that pour, you reject him. You know what I mean? Because now I ain't pouring no more.
right.
You know what I'm saying? And like I can tell when me and my wife really went through a serious situation over the last couple years, but a lot of it was based on, well, there's a couple factors, but one of the factors was based on her cancer journey. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like prior to that cancer journey, we was really, really, really solid, really good, like this. You know what I mean? And then when she had cancer, I was sharing with her my opinion, and then she went to other people for their opinion, and got to a space of where she would have doctor's appointments and wouldn't tell me about the doctor's appointments because she didn't like my response to her situation. And so I rolled it out because she was the one with cancer. You know what I mean? I got to rock out with her and boom, 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 boom. But I realized that after she went through her healing, I resorted back to those areas. You know what I mean? Because this is supposed to be my village. But this is supposed to be my village, my people. But you stepped out of the village and left me in the village to go create another village with some other people. And that became a real issue for me. And it was an issue that was very hard to get over because you're the only constant in my life. Like that's one thing I say about my wife. People ask me about her. It's like she's the one constant in my life. No matter what's going on, I know she's going to be this. I know she's going to be that. Boom, boom, boom. And for the first time, she was none of those things.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, okay, Walls, we know what to do. Activate. You know what I mean? And now I'm back in this isolated place.
And I didn't even know any of that. So all that stuff, I didn't even know until we went into marriage therapy. Because I'm like, yo, we need to like do something because something is different in our marriage. And it was in therapy that he said, well, she left. I'm like, dude, I was fighting for my life. Like, I wasn't even thinking I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. So where I feel like I isolated from everyone, especially because I didn't have, like, I didn't know where God was going to come in, if he was going to come in, if I was going to die. I was like, I didn't have an answer. But he took it as though I'm isolating from him. And there was like no real authentic conversation that was happening. He's still real surface, trying to make it seem like he got it all together. And I'm taking that as, dang, he's not even like really present. So yeah, I had found like a circle of people that I was really depending on, because I just didn't have an answer. So for me, I think learning that I had trauma, I didn't even know what trauma was until I was in school and I started going through trainings, and I'm like, oh wait, that happened to me. But when you think of it, it's like, yo, like, I grew up in a rough state, but that was like in survival mode. So you don't have time to process. You just kind of go on to the next thing. And then you consider yourself resilient. You consider yourself like, I'm hard. I know how to do this, and I'm an overcomer and everything. But that is actually causing more trauma to yourself because you're not digesting what's happening. So when I overcame cancer and we were in this house, it was like, yo, we actually like made it. Like we were from Brooklyn, living in a dungeon with 2 children at the time, and we always dreamed big and always believed that whatever we put our hands to do, God was he was gonna give us the means to do it. So working through the bottom to get to this house, like this house was just God's manifestation of like, y'all did this, right? And when we got here, I'm like, wow, we get to like finally just rest and enjoy. And we didn't know how to do that. Mm-hmm. And it was in the not knowing, like, yo, I was creating chaos because that was my pattern, right? It's like, oh, I need something to fix. So at the time, nothing was really broken, but I was just creating chaos because I'm like, wait, this don't feel like normal to me. Mm-hmm. So then I started realizing, like, okay, so there actually is, this is not just me creating chaos. We have this pattern where he isolates. I'm dealing with abandonment and rejection. I become really needy and like doing things to please him. And then we have a blowout. Then he separates. Oh no, then we come back together and everything looks like it's good, but it's not, because the problem is not being addressed. I remember when he met me, he's like, why are you so loud? And I'm like, oh, I'm loud because I'm Dominican. This is just how I talk. And then he came to our house for a family gathering. He's like, Dad, yeah, all loud. And I'm like, yeah. But then, and I was cussing people out. I was reckless. And now I'm learning in my 40s, like, girl, you don't know how to self-regulate. You go from 0 to 100 in a heartbeat. And he learned how to kind of adapt and deal. Like, there she go. Let me just let her be. And we're not really learning how to come out of that pattern because he's just giving me space instead of checking me. Because he's like, he's not confrontational. So he'll just check out and be like, you know what, whenever you finish, that's when I'll deal with you. And that was just kind of like the cycle. And I had to just get to the point where, yo, you need to like check yourself. Mm-hmm. And when I started EMDR therapy for myself, I started realizing like there were a lot of triggers that would come up that didn't have a name. And then in the naming what I'm feeling, I'm able to communicate to him, can I please have a hug? Instead of me just whatever and starting an argument in order to get him to draw back to me. because makeup sex is good, okay? So whenever we would get to the point where it was bad, we would reconnect with sex. And I'm like, dude, this is just not... And we've always done that. We never learned how to have a healthy relationship with each other. And now it's like, you know, even through the triggers and the things that we're going through, like the changes, I'm just like, okay, I'm able to self-regulate. I'm able to communicate. And, you know, and I have people that I can, like, just kind of ask, like, yo, am I, like, bugging out?
Yeah, but I think when we moved to this house, a lot of things happened, right? Because I never settled at a house before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He never unpacked.
I never unpacked. You know what I mean? This is the first house that I unpacked my stuff at.
And you made this home.
And I made it home.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, being here was like, I would want to be home. Like, I didn't want to go to the dealership no more. I started transitioning to the rentals because I wanted to be home. You know what I mean? I'd be home, I'd turn my grill on, and boom, 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 and I'd be out, you know, I'd be outside, I'd watch the kids swim, I'd sit in the back, I'd watch the deers. Like, this was so new to me, but it was so refreshing. Like, I loved to be home. Like this was home.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then, but at the same time, I was finding new things about me that I was liking. You know what I'm saying? Whether it was me getting back into my music, whether it was me playing golf, whatever it was, having friends, because I didn't really have no friends. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, she was in a different space. Like, she was going through her stuff, and it was like, because she was finding out this stuff about her, she automatically wanted me to find out stuff about me. But I'm like, I'm good. I'm in here playing golf. You know what I'm saying? And it got so toxic that this stopped feeling like home.
Yeah.
And where I was standing outside watching the deers, or I'd be in here, or I'd be downstairs in the studio, where I find places to just disappear. I will leave the house. I'll go back to work. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because it got to a place. It's not that I'm not confrontational. I'm not confrontational with her. You understand? Because when I'm confrontational, it's a different level of confrontation. You know what I'm saying? So I don't argue. I'm not the arguing type. Because if I argue, I'm gonna do things and say things that's gonna really hurt your feelings. Right. Because I'm gonna win the argument, and if you got a problem with it, then it's gonna be a fight.
Yeah, we don't want that rushing back.
So I don't even go into that realm with her. You understand? Yeah. So it was really about growing and beginning to understand the traumas. And even with her cancer journey, it wasn't about her finding a village. You understand what I'm saying? She made me, at that moment in time, we good on it now, but at that moment in time, she made me feel like I was the enemy. Yeah. You understand? And that was the difference. You can find whoever you want to find to be in your place, but homie, I ain't your enemy. You understand what I'm saying? Like, how can I be your enemy? We got 7 kids. Something happened to you. You know what I mean? I don't know what to do with these children. so I don't even know what to tell you. You know what I mean? So it's crazy.
Yeah. I'll go next. With us knowing what we know from what you guys have stated thus far, when did you both, or if you have both, come to the realization that you are not ever leaving each other, and this is the marriage, this is the relationship that you both want for the rest of your life, and there is no going anywhere, there is no divorcing, there is nothing? Like, when did you guys, in what part of your journey did you guys realize that?
Year 5. For me.
For you, that's what I was gonna say. For you, because he was leaving every time he was always saying that, and I didn't have security in him. So me being like, I have this glitch because of how I was brought up, that men are not faithful, and they have one family in the Dominican Republic, and they have their main one in the United States, and it's an agreed upon arrangement, and women are not, they don't have their own money. They have to always depend everything on the husband. And I watched that crap, and I'm like, I always got a plan B.
We were just talking about this.
So for me, it was always like settling in that reality in the last year. I left last year I went on a healing retreat in March, and he said he's not leaving, but I didn't believe that. Even still, right? I'm like, yo, this nigga gonna leave me at any moment, cause I know me and I know I'm a lot, and one day he's just gonna be like, you know what, I'm good. So when I left in March to the retreat, I went by myself. This was a solo trip. I didn't even know the people I was going to see. I just know that they offered this Christian healing retreat. I stayed at this Airbnb. Then the pastors lived upstairs, and it was like an attached apartment downstairs. And I took a flight like 6 hours and then drove 3 hours. Like I'm out here in the mountains. And my only goal was to go there to learn how to love my husband unconditionally, with no conditions. That means, like, if he never becomes this idea of what I have to love him just the way he is. And that means that I'm committed. I know. But I had to come to the realization of that him, right? But I had to learn that there is no leaving. Like, this is you have to, like, learn how to love without defenses. And I think that's the piece. Like, inside, I know my husband always would say, you don't trust me. And I'm like, I trust you, but I really didn't. I didn't trust that he was going to show up every single time without proof. So even if he doesn't have it, right? I'm to stand and just let him lead and trust the process. And just the last week I said to him, I'm like, I feel like I don't know how to love you without walls. Because my vulnerability, that means I gotta just trust money-wise. And like that's a mind change. That's a mind shift. Like, even if, like, my baby handsome, chicks be wanting him, and I gotta trust that he not gonna reach back and be who he used to be. You know what I mean? Like that it inside, like, it's a renewing of the mind, of like really walking in that trust. And that, because of past experiences and past traumas and all of that, you naturally have the glitch. So your initial defense is to activate, but you got to shift out of that activation and know, like, I got a good one here.
It's also how you view your marriage. Right. You know what I mean? Like, so year 5, year 5 was it, because I'm gone. Like, I was all the way out. Like, I done had a conversation with my pastor. I done had, you know what I mean? I'm deuces. You know what I mean? And I remember I came home, and this guy who was on the block, and I had said to him, I said, yo, do me a favor, look out for my kids for me for a few days. Just keep an eye out on the house and all that. I just need to go settle myself in, and I'm going to, do what I was going to do. So I was going to give me a little room, apartment, or whatever, but still take care of my house, because, this is who I am. You know what I'm saying? And he's like, yo, before you do that, let me talk to you. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, well, what's up? He said, you remember the cops was at my house the other day? And I was like, yeah, but I'm minding my business, man. It's none of my business. He said, yeah, I was going to kill my wife. And I was like, what? He's like, I said, what do you mean he's going to kill? I just seen y'all today. I was all lovey-dovey, boom, boom, boom. He said, yeah, I came home and I found her getting out the bed, getting dressed with her kid's father. I was like, excuse terminology, nigga. You know what I mean? Like, what? You know what I'm saying? And I was like, but yo, I just saw you today, bro. You was treating her like a queen. Like, what happened? He said, I had to evaluate myself, and I realized I wasn't giving her what she needed. I didn't give all that I could give into this marriage. And so I couldn't let that be the end of it, because I would have never been able to live with myself to find out if I gave it all.
Right.
First of all, they'd have had to call the coroner, not the cops. So that's first off, right? But
skip the whole interrogation part.
All right.
In the meanwhile, I'm listening to him and I'm like, yo, I definitely didn't give all. You know what I mean? I've definitely refrained from giving her all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I was still finding me. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? It's one, you know, when you young and you've been through abandonment, you've been through foster care, you've been through, you've been incarcerated, you've been, through all these different things. You're still trying to find yourself. So I'm a grown man, but I still got a lot of young kid type tendencies. You know what I'm saying? From different women to, just not being available, whatever it was. Like, I know I didn't give her all of me because I didn't even have all of me yet.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it was at that moment that I went upstairs and I was like, yo, you know what? We need to talk. And I was like, I realized that every time we would get into an argument, I would say to her, I'm out. You know what I mean? Because my mentality was always, women outnumber men 4-1. You count the dudes who gay and the dudes who locked up, it's like 6-1. You know what I'm saying? So I'm really the catch. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? I'm great to have you. You a catch too, but I'm a catch. Like, I tell my sons, like, yo, you a catch.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so you got to realize that you important too in your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So when I came inside, I was just like, yo, you know what? I apologize for saying that I'm gonna leave every time something happens, because I realized that I'm not giving you no security. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, men and women, we got two different things that define our love. You know what I mean? The Bible says that the Bible says that husbands, love your wife as Christ loved the church, to the point that he gave his life for it, right? Mm-hmm. But you got to realize what he did in the process of that church. Like the church spit on him, put a crown of thorns on his head, fed him vinegar in his time of thirst, mocked him, King of the Jews, and all that kind of stuff. Like, he really went through some things, crucified and died, and then resurrected for the church. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like if I gotta prove that to my wife, this is crazy. You know what I'm saying?
That's a lot to fit.
So, but in all reality, what he was saying is, are you willing to die to yourself and to your own stuff to be able to make sure that they're good? Mm-hmm. Now, the crazy part about that is that I've never read, if somebody find it, please let me know, but I've never read in the Bible where the Bible tells the wife to love her husband.
Such respect.
You know what I mean? Never told them to love it. The closest thing I found was it says, older women teach the younger women how to love their husband. Which means that's a taught behavior.
Right.
You understand? Which is hard to believe, because it's the women that always have the dream of the knight in shining armor and all that, all that fairy tale stuff that we've been fed all these years. But in all reality, what was said there was, this is a learned behavior. Mm-hmm. So when she comes into this relationship, she thinks she loves you. You know what I mean? But she don't really love you to the level of what she thinks love is. Mm-hmm. Because for me, the Bible told the wife, it said, submit yourself unto your own husband. Right? Now, when you talk about that, we're not just talking about like you a slave or anything like that, but anything with two heads is a monster. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So at some point, somebody has to say, I trust somebody to make a decision when we at odds with each other. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And as a man, you know what I mean? What I want to know is that you trust me enough that even when I make the mistake, the mistake was made trying to do the best for us. Right. You understand what I'm saying? Especially for somebody like me, because I'm a hustler. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I jumped into business with nobody teaching me how to do business. Mm-hmm. So I learned by trial and error. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? There was a time when I wasn't working. I was working at UPS, and UPS was paying me some money. I came home like, yo, I make this every 2 days. They're giving me this every 2 weeks. I said, nah, something ain't adding up. The math ain't mathing. You know what I'm saying? She was all excited I had a job, and I'm like,
finally a paycheck.
Like, nah, nah, this ain't gonna work for me.
Yeah.
So I said, do me a favor, give me whatever rent money we got,
and let me go.
and let me go do what I gotta do.
Every time.
And for her, it was
here
like,
I go. I'm like,
cringing. You know what I'm saying?
He's like, we don't even got it complete.
Yeah, they've got all the money.
Right.
Let me go do what I do and bring it back.
But you wasn't hustling drugs.
No, I wasn't hustling drugs. Just
he was
CDs and DVDs and
glasses.
But
and all that.
I was busting my behind working like I was working a 9 to 5.
No, it's true.
Because I would leave 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning, go re-up and grab my stuff, and be out on the block until everything is gone to make sure I brought that money home back to my family so we could pay our bills. You understand? And when you got somebody with a mentality like that, you got to trust them. And if you don't trust him, it's going to cause major problems. So for me, I realized that I never gave her the ability to trust me because I never gave her the ability to be secure in my love and in my trust. Because if we got in an argument, I was like, I'm out. That's no security for her.
Yeah.
That's no trust for her. Mm-hmm. So I came in the house and I said, I'm never telling you I'm leaving again. And I remember that day because she just broke down and started crying. And prior to that, we were at odds because it was the first time I told her I was leaving, and she was like, all right.
Mm-hmm. I was,
you know what I mean?
I'm about sick and tired of that.
The problem is I wasn't bluffing, so I was really like, all right, I'm out. You know what I mean? But it was at that moment that I realized that, hold on, we was working on something. Like, we had just bought our first condo. Right. It was all, all these things going on.
We had just opened the church.
Just opened up. So I was like, yo, you know what? I'm never going to tell you I'm leaving again. Ever. I'm never leaving, period. It's never coming out of my mouth. I don't care how bad it gets. I don't care what goes on. She can go on a whole hoeing spree out here. I'm going to be right here. Like, all right, babe. You good? All right. You got what you got going on? Cool. All right. I'm going to go sleep downstairs in the studio. You know what I mean? Till we can work this out. I'm not going nowhere. You crazy? I made this woman like she made me. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nobody going nowhere. You know what I mean? I'm throwing out some extreme things out there, but this is the level of my commitment to my marriage. Like I don't care what it is. You understand what I'm saying?
So one thing I've heard you mention, you guys both mentioned kind of I've heard work a lot. Like you talking about you going to get it, you talking about things like the years of distractions that you guys have had. And then you also said something, Key, you said the learned behaviors, right? And I'm very curious as to how do you almost like, well, let me ask you like this. Is that world that you guys have created, right? Everything that you just described, is that the world that y'all have found fulfillment in? You know what I'm saying? Like, 'cause some people like yo, this is what, blah, 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 blah. But another couple would just be like, that's a lot. They got the church, they got the businesses, they got the kids, they got the stuff. And for some people, they'd be like, yo, this is what we have always dreamed of. But then some will be like, yeah, I just really want to be at the beach 7 days a week and then watch TV. Is that the world that y'all created to function in fulfillment? Or was it a world created by dysfunction? And now you guys are like, all right, well, leveling this stuff off. And what is that reality like now? Because after all of these years that you guys have been doing a lot of the work, stuff like that.
So outwardly, right, what I'm realizing, because I'm emotional, right, and I'm needy, I realize that all this outside stuff, the house, the businesses, the level of being where we were to where we are now was, and that was like the significance when we bought this house is, Dag, we did a really good job at building, but the inside of all of this is not like, where is it? So he says, I'm never leaving, right? Outside, he's here forever. For me, his emotional detachment that I now recognize, I'm like, dude, you leave every day. Like, you're not even here, even though you're here. and we didn't know how, like, I think that's the piece where we're at now in this leg of the race, is that we're learning how to connect emotionally, because that's the piece that we never had time to sit and unpack. One, we didn't have the emotional language and emotional intelligence to like connect that all this thriving and because we like, oh, when we get this, we're gonna be happy. When we get that, we're gonna be fulfilled. But we're here, and it's like, wait, we missed a lot of steps internally because you don't have it, I didn't have it, and now we're kind of learning together.
Yeah, but I think when you're dealing with people who have trauma,
yeah,
right, and I think this is important,
right,
when you're dealing with people who have trauma, you can say you're missing the emotional elements, but you can't get to the emotional elements until you dealt with the surface elements first. Like, I can't let you into that space until I know I can trust you here.
right.
You understand? But I think one of the things with me and B, why we have got to that place, is because of the things that we built together. Right. You know what I mean?
Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Authentically Healing Podcast with Briggitte P. Brown, LCSW. You can continue to tune in on Apple Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and all other streaming platforms. Please like and share, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at the Authentically Healing Podcast with Briggitte P. Brown, LCSW. Please email me at authenticallyhealingpodcast@gmail.com and tell me how this podcast is connecting with you and what topics you'd like me to touch on. Send me what areas you're struggling in, any testimonies, and share your story. Until next time, beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospers. And the God of peace himself will sanctify you wholly, spirit, soul, and body. Continue to own your whole story in your own words. Until next time. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Authentically Healing Podcast with Briggitte P. Brown, LCSW. You can continue to tune in on Apple Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and all other streaming platforms. Please like and share, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at the Authentically Healing Podcast with Briggitte P. Brown, LCSW. Please email me at authenticallyhealingpodcast@gmail.com and tell me how this podcast is connecting with you and what topics you'd like me to touch on. Send me what areas you're struggling in, any testimonies, and share your story. Until next time, beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospers. And the God of peace himself will sanctify you wholly, spirit, soul, and body. Continue to own your whole story in your own words. Until next time. When I just how you feel.